What are you drinking?
I'm drinking everything.
Okay, what's in there right now?
This one is coffee.
Okay, I just sent someone out for a coffee. I make it sound like I have an assistant. It's like a friend, just to be clear. Like yesterday, someone was like, I feel like we're already fine. Yesterday, someone was like, I'm taking the whole team with me. And I thought, that's your family. Just call it what it is.
I'd be like, that's my dog.
Right. Right. So I just sent my friend if I need to feel like I'm, making progress in life, I'm like, I just sent my assistant out for coffee. It's my friend and my assistant. It's one and the same. First of all, I can't wait to talk about all things book publicity because it's it's like a minefield to talk about this. And I feel like when we start talking about it, people get excited and then they get it's trepidatious because I think people wonder, what am I going to have to do? And my motto, which you may or may not know, is you don't have to do anything. I think that's so important to remind people, maybe just myself, of. We don't have to do anything. And yet, if we don't do anything, we don't get to come back and go, well, nothing's selling. No one's buying it. No one. And I feel like, and this is a little bit of a longer segue intro than I was anticipating here, but I don't know if you talk to, so I'm asking you, do you talk to a lot of people who tend to lead with, I don't really care if my book makes any money?
I mean, I work with publishing houses and I host workshops for them, for their authors. And then I work independently. I do, I have a DIY PR course, which is just self-study. I have group coaching. I have full service publicity. And then I also have consulting, which is kind of the sweet spot. So I'll tell you, and you and I are kind of alike because I think we work with a lot of women entrepreneurs too.
Yeah.
So to answer your question directly, it's yes and no. Like I have a client right now, Lisa, who's like, just consider her book. Like she considers her book like a glorified business card. So she doesn't really care about all these book sales. It was more to give her kind of credibility. She also wanted to be on more stages and things like that.
Right.
For readers. It wasn't like, that wasn't her top objective.
Right.
And then I have other clients or people I work with who are like 100%. They want to, make it their author career. They want to sell enough copies that's all they have to do. Yeah.
Well, and I think you raise a really good and interesting point, which is, last week, I hope no one else can hear my dog scratching frantically at the door.
Ditto.
So I'm going to let him in a minute, but he's like, I want to go out. I want to come in. I want to go out. I want to come in. And I'm trying to teach him to make a decision. So last week I was talking to Melissa De La Cruz, who is, has written 80 books now. Crazy, right? And her thing was, you've got to know what your goal is.
Yes.
Right. And I completely agree with that. And it's one of the first things that I talk to people about is, what is your goal? So in line with that, when someone says, well, I'm using my book as a glorified business card, which I've talked about how much I hate that phrase. I have a few, right. I see it in your face, but we both know what everybody means when they say that. If I say right one more time, I'm going to lose it. Knowing that your book is intended to be the entry point for people to find out more about you, to connect with you more, is that's what a lot of people mean when they say, I don't care if the book makes money. What they're saying is they don't care if they make a full-time living off sales of their book, which, as we all either know or will now know, is extraordinarily difficult to do. Yeah. Extraordinarily. Then there's the other side of it where I hear people say, well, I truly don't care if I make money. I just want to help people, which I think is so lovely. So lovely. Either they have another source of income and they truly don't care. There's somewhere in the middle, though, where I think people say it because they're trying to protect themselves. Because they're afraid. They know that they feel nervous about doing the publicity.
Yeah.
And by telling themselves, I don't really care if it doesn't. It's protecting themselves from needing to go out and do something that they don't necessarily want to do. So I'm really excited to get your thoughts on what's, and see the air quotes, working, what's not working, what are some new things that people are trying. And first, I need to ask you what you did with the Gilmore Girls, because
so good, right?
when you sent me your email, I mean, you had me from the first paragraph, but when we got to the Gilmore Girls and you said you had worked on the Gilmore Girls and American Idol, but the Gilmore Girls, I was like, we're done here.
I know. Done. It's just like my heart. So I did my master's in broadcast journalism from Emerson, Boston, and then I was working in the news in producing. Okay. And then I switched over. I wanted to come back to California. I went to LA and started working as a publicist, just the other side, at a phenomenal agency top in Beverly Hills. And so I was a publicist for in the TV department for American Idol, Gilmore Girls, So You Think You Can Dance, just tons, a lot of shows. Gilmore Girls has a special place in my heart because sometimes you represent something and you absolutely love it. And sometimes you represent something and it's more just a job.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
It's so great. And I can't believe like they left us kind of like.
I'm still very displeased.
I know. I'm like, I know they've moved on and done all these other great shows, but I'm like, can you just circle back, please?
Like, who leaves us off with I'm pregnant? Who does that? Well, they did.
I know.
I still love them. I mean, I've watched it with both my daughters, mostly my older daughter, and we just watch it over and over. There's like a time of year when we always put it on. It's always in the fall coming, like
I was just about to say, Elizabeth, it's such a fall.
Yeah, such a fall show.
Like, it's so great. I know, I do too. I'm the same way.
I want to live there. I'm like, where is that?
Me too.
Okay, I swear if I lived there, I'd do a lot more book publicity. Surely they'd have a great bookstore.
And so it's really just that in Hollywood, but
bingo. So tell me, first of all, do you know Jen Hansen DePaula?
No, I don't.
Okay, I need to connect the two of you.
I would love that.
Jen is my dear friend who I'm realizing you guys are extremely similar. She has been in book publicity for a long, long time. And before that, she was in music publicity in Nashville in the music industry. Fantastic. And so she has been for years my go-to for book, this is the other reason I was really excited to hear from you. Because there just aren't many people in the space, I find, who authentically know what they're talking about, meaning they're willing to say, I don't know. They're willing to admit this is a very odd, it's just kind of an odd space. There are no guarantees. We're all throwing darts at the wall. And I think that even that coming from an industry expert professional is so reassuring to authors. So just tell me, like, what do you love about book publicity? What do you feel like on the author side? What do you feel like is available now for authors that should excite, and I don't like the word should, but should excite authors?
Yeah. I mean, because I'm so passionate about helping authors and entrepreneurs, because that's me too. I have a book out and I've been on the journey, and oh my gosh, and we have to champion each other. And I am all about that. Like, I absolutely love connecting people to and helping them like share their books and just let's all do this together. We're all in it together. So I'm a big believer in that. And I just have always had a special passion for authors and for entrepreneurs. And I think putting yourself out there is such a big deal. And I commend every single person. It is not easy. But I really just connect with authors and entrepreneurs. That's why I kind of, I left the entertainment world to say I want to really help people. And then I also want to help people help themselves. So what was your question again, Elizabeth?
That's the best moment. So where were we going? Like, what do you find exciting?
Like my brother would be like, land the plane.
Listen, if we don't keep this reined in, Emily, we're both going to go, the whole audience is going to be like, are they ever going to come back to center? Will they ever land the plane? And the answer is, I don't know. My original question was, what is exciting to you about, for authors? I mean, let me just say really quickly, because you said something, and if I don't say it, I'll forget it. I have talked to a lot of authors at this point in the traditional indie hybrid. It doesn't matter how they're published.
Yeah.
And one thing I have come to really rest assured with is that even though the book industry is very windy and it's turbulent and it's unpredictable, and as Jane Friedman said, it's the one area that she can think of, and I can't think of another one either, where there are no guarantees. It's not like, well, if you stick with this for 10 years, you are assured to fill in the blank. You're not assured to anything beyond finish the next book, because that's the only thing over which you have control. Yeah. We've certainly heard and seen the cattiness that can happen in this industry, sadly, especially among women, in the Goodreads community, et cetera. Yeah. That being said, I find this to be one of the most supportive, lovely communities. I have met some of my dearest friends, like people like I can already tell you, you're not rid of me when we get off this interview. I find that it's such a wonderful space where people don't feel like it's my book or your book, so I've got to be cutthroat. It could be both. Let's figure out how someone who likes my book will also benefit from your book, and let's see how we could do this together, which also creates this sense of, I'm not alone in this. I'm doing it with someone else. So if we win, we both win. If we air quote fail, we both fail. We do it together, and it feels a little safer.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
When you work with authors, because you do it in a whole bunch of different capacities. Yeah. When you get started with someone who says, and this is even a hard question because it's going to depend on genre, but like, I want to get my book out there to as many people who will enjoy it as possible. Do you have a first step?
Yes, I do. Okay. And I have a first step for everybody too. And it's kind of what you were mentioning too, goals. I always kind of start with objectives, same thing, different. And I find that authors that I work with, it's one of three things for the most part. It's either number one, they want an author career and they want to sell books. I mean, this is like something, it's not just that they poured their heart into one project. They want a future for this. Then also there's the other people who are like, you know what, this is just like we talked about the business card. They're like, I want this book to build credibility. So many people I meet, especially in the nonfiction genre, especially people who are coaches or they have, some sort of practices, they want to see themselves as like the go-to on CNN or the go-to on the Today Show or being, speaking on stages. It's not like they really poured their heart. They're not like me who want to like enjoy like sitting in a room for 7 hours alone typing. Like I love that, right? Not everybody is like that. So, and then there's other people who really they're like, I just want visibility. They're like, I just want to be out there. And kind of with any campaign, there is a little bit of, throwing something against the wall and seeing what sticks. But it is so important that people at least have an idea of their number one, number two, and number three objectives, because it changes the whole way that you're going to go about things. Like if I want, like for your example, if somebody says, I want to get this book in the hands of as many readers as possible who are also going to appreciate it and get value from it, right? Which is so important. You pour your heart into something, you want other people, you want to have a positive impact on others. Books change lives, and so in the best ways. So in that kind of situation, you would be like, okay, we want to target, you want to be really, really clear on who your audience is. And then you want to get in the media that are going to be serving that audience. So that's not necessarily the same situation for somebody who says, hey, I want to build credibility. Now, credibility is always going to be about media logos that are very recognizable. Now, they don't have to be recognizable across like national media as far as the Today Show or GMA or whatever, or NPR or Entrepreneur or Forbes. It can also be in that genre. So I have a client right now that I'm working with, and she's a mom of 4, and she wrote this incredible book about, doing less as in motherhood, like kind of modern motherhood. And her credibility, while she does, it is one of her, targets to objectives. She does want to be, at some point at the GMA couch. So we're working on pitches for the, figuring that out. But also a lot of the mom podcast blogs, media, they might not be recognizable to everyone, but when she has those logos on her website or somebody says she's been here, it's credibility for her in that genre.
Right. Right. So question about that. How reasonable do you feel it is anymore to shoot for, say, Today Show, Good Morning America, beyond it being a bucket list item?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. I know that a lot of people that, when Oprah was on, that was the dream, right? I want to be on Oprah. So many people would say that. What a lot of people don't realize is that the reality of and especially today, but the reality of getting on the Today Show is you're going to move fewer than 300 books by being on the Today Show. And that was even maybe a decade ago. Like, I don't even know what it is today because people don't have cable anymore. And so how many people are actually watching the Today Show? Now, to your point, if you can say, I was on the Today Show for even 30 seconds. Yes, it absolutely gives you credibility because the Today Show will not bring on someone who is not credible.
Exactly.
As far as though moving books, right? I often have to reset people's expectations with that because number one, it doesn't do it as well as people think it will. Number two, it's not, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there is an investment, if nothing else, in someone such as yourself to help them craft the pitch to get them on the show and all those sorts of things. So I think it really is about assessing what are your goals in doing this. Same with New York Times bestseller list, same, all of that. Like there are people paying 6 figures to get on the bestseller list just to say I got on. So how do you set people's expectations? Because coming from the Hollywood side of it, right? I certainly understand your potential position of, look, there is validity to those things too. So just tell me your perspective on that.
Yeah. So, I love to manage people's expectations, and also I'm a big optimist, and I've seen the big things happen. Right? Like there's magic everywhere.
I mean, look at I don't know if they're not watching, but I have a whole thing that says everything is possible. So yeah, I'm also, it's like the optimist with a heavy side dose of realism.
100%, 100%. And I always tell people who I, work with, and even just talking to, you really have to have patience and tenacity. Absolutely. Like you really, really have to. And I remember, I don't want to go on a tangent, so let me go back. So how do I manage those expectations? I mean, I'm a big believer in if you have a calling, like if you're like, I want to be on GMA, like one of my clients, that is her goal. Like that is where she's seen herself and all the things. I'm all about let's swing for the fences. And also let's create a strategy that you're also going to see other results because there's momentum in all of this stuff. You can talk about it from a mindset energetic perspective where it's just really unhealthy to hear no all the time. As somebody who's also, worked with like the American Idols, like the media coaching, you have people coming from all over the country and they're like Ryan Seacrest, like, welcome to Hollywood. And suddenly they're being interviewed by, national media, walking red carpets. They're like, what do I say? What do I do? There is this element too of like, get your feet wet. Get really comfortable with your sound bites, with your talking points, just, so I like to do a little bit of both. Like I like to encourage people in whatever strategy we ultimately, or they create, or I create with them, co-create. I like to have them, you want to have dreams. I mean, that's so important.
Of course.
And also you need to kind of be a realistic. And I mean, personally, and I know you asked this earlier, Elizabeth, and I didn't really answer it. Like, where I find people are having the most success right now, and the definition of success, meaning they're connecting with actual readers and people who are really interested in their books, are podcasts. And podcasts, there's so many reasons. It's like, number one, they live on forever or for a long time.
Yeah.
And number two, like, books don't get old. Books have a long tail. I can hear about a book that was out 5 years ago. I don't care that it launched 5 years ago. I'm going to go buy it. It's not.
Do you know, I'm interrupting you again,
Yes,
because
please.
I will forget. Do you know what I heard the other day that I didn't know?
What?
Taylor Jenkins Reid, Seven Wives of Evelyn Hugo. Have you read this? Okay, I need you to, I don't know what genre you like, but it doesn't matter. I need you to put this on your list. This was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid that I got my hands on, and it blew my mind. That was I believe she released it, I might be in like 2017, but it was a COVID breakthrough. It did not go berserk until COVID for some reason, right? So 3 years later. And the same can be said that the other example I've given for years is You Are a Badass. Jen Sincero.
I was right. Oh, I talk about that all the time.
It was like 4 years, and it was not expected. Yes, it was traditionally published. It was not expected to do. She does what I do. She was a book coach, a little differently, but same thing. And then I don't know, right place, right time, right cover, right who knows what, and off it goes. So it does have a very long tail, especially today. And even traditionally published authors today are given a little bit more leeway by their publisher. It used to be like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If you don't get this baby moving in 3 weeks, we're done. Now it's, they've got months, if not sometimes even a year or so, they give them, because they know there's always something new they can try.
Totally.
Right. So podcasts are absolutely.
And books are very word of mouth. Somebody says, you got to read this book, Emily. I'm going to buy, like you, like, I'm like,
right.
Okay, putting that in my little cart right now. But yeah, podcasts, I steer clients towards, and my coaching students towards, at least exploring podcasts for those reasons, that they live for a long time, SEO, that, if they oftentimes you'll ask the host to link to your website in the show notes. And so you have some search engine optimization going on, which is always lovely. And you also, most, ones that are recorded, you can say to the host, can I get a copy? And then go and have your VA, your virtual assistant, or do it yourself. You make clips. So you can have, like, out of an hour podcast interview, you could have 4 or 5 clips that you can repurpose on social media. So, it's just, I find it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
And also podcasts are rare in the sense that they allow you to go deep and to really connect with people, where even, I just booked somebody the other day on an NPR, and that's great. NPR can go a little bit more like 10, 15 minutes versus like but you just go so deep with podcasts.
Well, that's a great point, because with news, if you're on a local news, you've got 2 minutes. It can feel like the longest and shortest 2 minutes of your life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
That's it. There's no depth to that. It's just, hey, I was on this news channel this morning. From if we pull it back to a very grassroots, keeping with the podcast theme, but a very grassroots look. I'm a new author. I'm not really comfortable with this yet. I don't have a huge platform. I'm trying to get out there. Would podcasts and social media, what are some ways that you encourage people that are, I'll obviously cut this out, bang for your buck, so to speak?
Yeah.
Because I think people hear, oh, you've got to post 3 times a day, and I can't even maintain. I can't. And with podcasts, to go back to that for 2 seconds, a little more than 2 seconds, but the thing is, that's somewhere that some people might hate it when I say this. That's a great place to use Chat GPT, because you can have it help you come up with ideas for how to parse out a podcast clip or podcast show notes or whatever into multiple different types of content. And Chat GPT can also be a great way to help. You can't, I don't believe you should copy paste. You got to make it sound like you, but come up with ideas.
100%.
So how do you help people start who are like, I don't have the ability or the desire to do 3 posts a day, show my face? What valuable content am I going to provide? I've written romanticy.
Right. Yeah. No, it's such a great question. And after like so many years of doing workshops and helping people, that's when I created this DIY PR course. So, because I don't like to break people's banks, and every author has a different, look, if anybody's listening and they don't know, like if you're going to hire a decent, good publicist for 3 months, which is usually a minimum, it's going to be from $10,000 to $15,000.
Thank you.
It is not cheap. And it's not at all. It's a huge investment. And it's wonderful for people that it's wonderful for. And also there are so many people, I started meeting so many people who were like, I can't, that's just not, and it's not that it's not possible. For me personally, like, I want us all to do the best that we can. And I also believe there's so many people who I work with, clients, I teach them, I coach them, who they can do it themselves, Elizabeth. They're not going to do it all, but they don't have to. Like we kind of started out in the beginning, you don't have to do it all. You can do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and watch the momentum kind of build. I'm also a big believer in like strategy. And I know that's kind of like a word that can appeal to people and also be like, but I like it because I like to help people like put, I was playing dominoes with my niece the other day, and it was like, I like to help them put dominoes in a row and flick the one that's going to have everything come into alignment. Like I'm all about like, let's take the overwhelm and the stress out of it as much as possible and be smart about it. So anyways, but to answer your question, like I have, a DIY PR course. I also have group coaching students. And then I offer like single sessions to give those people like some one-on-one, because everyone needs some one-on-one at a rate that's, much more affordable than investing in a publicist. And I would say, get started with some sort of roadmap. Of course, I want to tell everybody, come join my DIY PR course. I'll take great care of you. I'll give you all the information, but you don't have to do that. There's so many resources out there, but you really do have to you need to start with, what do I want? Just like we started with, like, what do I want? You also have to give yourself some time. You have to be realistic of like, what's a 3-month plan? And I'm going to commit to it, right? And hey, why not ask Chat GPT to help you with that, right? But every person is different, and how much time they have in their day or whatnot. This one client of mine who I mentioned earlier, she's a mother of 4, and she's doing incredible. And she also has, she doesn't have 5 hours a day to work on pitches and whatnot. But I would say, decide what you want, get really clear on what you want, give yourself a timeline, 3, 6 months, a year, and I would say go after podcasts. The most important thing you need to do after identifying what you want is who you're trying to attract. Like, who are your readers? Because it is so pointless to spend all this time pitching to a podcast where let's say your ideal reader is a woman who's 30 years old. Just that's pretty vague. That's not even very specific, but let's just go with that. You're going to have so much more success. You're going to feel so much better and see the results when you pitch to podcasts who that's their target. That's their listeners.
Even if it's a smaller podcast. So many times people will say to me, well, I want to get Gary V or, right. And I don't know why I always use that example, but it's funny because, I used to, maybe 5 years ago, I had a lot more male clients than like, and I've switched a little bit. I work with far more women at this point than men. I still work with men, but far more women. And at the time though, it was the reverse. And so for some reason, Gary V was the blurb du jour. That's what everybody wanted. And what was interesting about it was I said, look, Gary, yes, has millions of people following him and listening to him and doing whatever he says. If your book is a romance novel, I'm guessing there are like 17 people in his audience that would run and grab that. On the flip side, you can get yourself on a smaller podcast that maybe it's newer, which by the way is a lot easier to get yourself on. It's not, you can't even make contact with Call Her Daddy. I mean, hello, like that's probably my dream at this point is to be on Call Her Daddy, but you can't even reach those hosts directly. There's a whole process for that. And it's very much like in the traditional publishing world, a lot of the editors, the acquisitions editors will only talk to agents. In the podcasting world, a lot of those booking folks will only talk to publicists.
Yeah.
And so
it's the gatekeepers,
the gatekeepers. And sometimes when you're paying that $10 to $15 to $25,000 for a 3-month, retainer with a publicist, that is what you're paying for, is the fact that they have not just a list, but they have the more personal relationships they have, the more you are understandably and reasonably going to be asked to pay for that. That just, to me, that makes total sense. Yeah. So if you can find a smaller podcast that's just getting its legs and you can reach out to the host directly, but their listeners are exactly your market.
Yes.
You are going to have more traction with that than you will going to talk to the Gary V folks.
Exactly. And then it kind of, like we kind of mentioned earlier, it snowballs. Somebody will hear you on that podcast and they'll be like, oh, I want her to be on my show, or I want to follow this person and now I'm going to connect. It's just wild. Like visibility, it is, you really, once you get in there, it just happens. It's beautiful. I love it. And again, I think podcasts are the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Granted, there are some people who are like, I don't want to be on camera, because podcasts are, now like 90% of, or 80, I don't know the percentage, but a lot.
I don't either, but right.
And I'm always like, okay, let's do a little media coach here. Let's get your feet wet, because you do have to push yourself. And
not all of them are on camera.
Not all of them.
So this one, for example, isn't, I mean, I do clips, but I have yet to put this on YouTube as video because I truly have to hire someone for that. I don't have enough. My God, does anybody want to do that?
Just don't even want it. They're like, I don't know how to, show up, whatever. But that's where, you can also, there's so many, I was just working with somebody recently who we just got a blog post of hers. Like, honestly, we repurposed one of her Substack newsletters or emails or articles, I should say, on CNBC, their Sunday edition. Now, I don't know how many readers how many book sales she gets from that, but I do like that there's a direct link to her website. I do like that there's these direct links for ease and also for search engine optimization, and then you get some credibility with that media logo.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
So there are other ways that I say right this second, I am like, dive into podcasts, do it. You won't regret it.
I think what a lot of people in this space don't recognize, because unfortunately the loudest voices are often the ones that are saying, I can teach you in 5 minutes how to make $17 good trillion, and it's only going to cost you $7, but I can, I can do that, or it's going to cost you 70,000. Who knows? What a lot of people don't realize is how long of a game this is. And I take great comfort in that, because if I feel like, oh my gosh, I have 5 minutes to figure this out, and if I don't, I'm dead in the water, that gives me great anxiety. I love the idea that it's just kind of it's its own story. pun intended, being told. One of my sons the other day actually asked me, because I got 2 more books in the mail. One was from the new book of poems by Miranda Cowley Heller, who, is from Paper Palace. And the other was Jane Hamilton's new one, but they're both arcs.
Yeah.
And I was just so excited. I just thought, I can't believe that these are just showing up on my doorstep. And my son said, how are you getting these people on the podcast? And I said, you know what? I'm 100, and not only am I 128 episodes in, but this is my 4th podcast, and I've been doing this for 9 years. The book coaching thing, not the podcast. The podcast has only been about a year. But in that time, I've met people who have said, oh, you need to have, like Jordan Roeder was on, several weeks ago, and she said, you've got to have Melissa De La Cruz. That's how Melissa and I connected. I didn't reach out to Melissa. And so once Jordan, who's friends with Melissa, reaches out and says, hey, Melissa, you've got to go on this podcast, Melissa's like, okay, but those things take time.
Yes.
And I don't look at things as being transactional.
Yes.
I'm never having someone on this podcast so that I can then go back to them and say, hey, so I had you on my podcast. Can you introduce me to, I've never done that. Yeah. And I think there might be people who would tell me that I've missed an opportunity there. That just never felt good to me.
Yeah. And I think the whole thing, and I love that. I love what you're saying so much, because the author community is so embracing, and it is so wonderful. You just have to connect with the right people, put your heart into, honestly, something else I do, because when I was working in the entertainment world, especially, you have, so many people trying to get product placement or this and that. Like, right. I send out mailers to influencers all the time. Now, influencer is a very interesting word.
It really is, isn't it?
I don't even really gravitate. I'm not a big fan of that word.
Me either.
I don't know how else to say it. But let me say, like, I will send out to people. It could be a female entrepreneur who I've taken one of her programs, or it could be an author who I respect, or Kristen Davis recently. She's the actress on Charlotte on Sex and the City. And I never worked with her in person, but I remember when I was living in LA after Hurricane Katrina, I volunteered with a rescue organization called Rescue for Refugees. And they brought in, hundreds of dogs and cats who were like abandoned in New Orleans. And she was part of it. And we all just I ended up fostering a dog for like 4 months.
Okay.
She was just absolutely so lovely. And when my book came out, I felt that she would really like it. And so, I sent her a copy with, just a mailer that has some QR codes and stuff like that, but a heartfelt letter. And I guess, like, to land the plane on this one, I think that it's all about being authentic, doing what feels good in your heart, being on those shows that you actually like and respect. Like, I just adore you. I'm like, I love Elizabeth. I just think you're fantastic on so many levels. But I think that the more that you connect with people, not try to make it transactional, but really like genuinely, like, I want to know you and I want to be in your world and I want to support you. I write reviews for people all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
I share shelfies. Like, I'll get a book. It doesn't even have to be a client, and I'll take a picture and, little shelfie, post it on Instagram. I'll do everything to support.
You do kind of get, like, this past week I was in Portland. And so my oldest daughter and I went to Powell's. And by the way, no one like, I would have really appreciated a little warning, meaning get a plan for like 5 hours. You take a suitcase, buy an extra suitcase, like all the things. Okay. And so we go into Powell's, and if anyone who has been to Powell's who's listening knows exactly it's 4 floors. You're in a maze. It's unbelievable. And I found, I was looking for, I'm always looking for my friends' books in there.
Yeah.
I have a local group of writers that I've become really close to, and I'm always looking at okay, are there books here? Are there books here?
Yeah.
And my friend Neely Tubati Alexander just launched her newest One Courtroom Drama. So I was looking for that. And whenever I see them, I take pictures and I post them to social media. And then we went to, where were we? Cannon Beach. And there was this darling bookstore, Cannon Beach Books Company. It was so I can't even. They had one copy of every book that they sold, just one, which made me think of Ryan Holiday's store in, I think, Austin, the Red Porch, I think it's called, because he too, I believe they only stock one copy of each book so that they can have, it's not a huge store.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, this is, I don't even know. It was great though. And one of the first books I saw was Super Bloom by Meg Tatey, who I love. And I just was like, oh my God, like she's here, you know? And then I discovered another book called Libby Lost and Found. And when I was growing up, my nickname was Libby until 8th grade. And you never see that. And so I immediately bought that. It's by Stephanie Booth, if I'm not mistaken. I'll put it in the show notes. And then I posted that and Stephanie replied. And then that's how I connected with Stephanie. Like it's not about transactions. It's really about just, so even if you're an author and you're not sure how to promote your own book, here's an idea. Just start promoting other people's books.
Yes. Yes.
How often because I know people do like tactical, they're like, oh, this sounds great and everything, but what can I do? So if someone's just getting going on Instagram or what is your recommendation? Is it pick one platform? Is it pick 3 platforms? Is it post 5 times a day? Is it how do you, if someone is really unsure, and I know we're giving general advice here and you would give much more specific advice if you were working with someone one-on-one, but how do you kind of, what's some general guidance you can provide?
Okay. It's so important. Such a great question. I like to be very strategic about everything. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll throw a story up there that's just my silly dog. There's not an intention behind it. It's just fun, you know, but when it comes to efforts, I don't like to waste my time. I like to, I'd rather be writing, right? You know, so I'm not a big social media person. I'm not a big fan of it. It's not good for like my brain and stuff. However, I understand the importance of it. So I'm a big believer in going deep versus wide. And I also believe that, yes, I know. We're like, we're so aligned. We're so in sync. But I'm like, let's go deep versus wide. You can't be everywhere. You can't do all the things. And just because somebody told you should be on this platform, if it doesn't speak to you, if it gives you a headache when you're there, go somewhere else. You know, there's plenty of places to go. So the first thing that I always recommend people to do for, let's say, an author platform, because it's what everyone talks about, right? Yep. So I've always recommended clients to have a newsletter of some sort. Now I don't anymore necessarily because Substack has become so big. But I still do. You know, but for people, it can, I mean, up to, I think, depending on who, like MailChimp, I think is up to 500 contacts free. But when you start paying money, I understand, you know, my list is very large. So it's
as an author, is your list very large or or do you have 2 separate lists?
No, they're all the same.
Selfish question. Okay. I'm in the same boat. So I have, And
I only send out a newsletter now monthly, the first Friday of every month. And then when there's like special announcements and stuff, but I used to be weekly, but I don't do that anymore. As far as, so let's talk about having somewhere that they can put in their email address, like having something where you can reach them in some way where it's written content, I believe is important. Because it's a longer form. You can also get them to your Instagram through that email or the newsletter. Like, oh my God, I just posted this. It was hilarious. Did you see it? You know? Whatever. But also for social media, choose 1 or 2 and go deep versus wide. So for me personally, do I have a LinkedIn? Of course I do. Am I on it? No. I have so many people like, you should be on LinkedIn. I'm like, you know. I also, I have, Instagram is kind of my go-to, I guess. And I post usually 2 to 3 times a week. I try to do 1 reel. And then I also do usually 2 static posts, and I do stories usually about 5 times a week.
Okay.
And
this is so refreshing.
I also am very intentional once a week. Like I have a whole list of things that I want to promote. So like once a week, like I'll post in a story, review of the week for my book, right? Like either create it in Canva or take a screenshot of something and just be like, oh, it's a review. Thank you so much to everyone who's reviewed. If you read it and you haven't, I would really appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. Or here's my book. It's on sale this week. Or, so it's kind of like it's Instagram with intention.
Look at you creating a buzz phrase.
But it's also to connect with people. Like I really want to provide them value. I'm like, the world is dark on social media. So I like to provide inspiration and light.
Well, it's never ending too.
I know.
And I think when I talked to Jane Friedman a couple weeks ago, so it's a few episodes back, if anyone wants to go listen to it, we talked a lot about Substack. Because Jane has a successful Substack. Jane also has an enormous audience.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people at this point will feel like, oh my gosh, is Substack the new thing? Is that where I need to be? Much like is Periscope. I always joke about Periscope because I feel like it was around for about 45 seconds.
Right.
For those 45 seconds, every major air quote influencer and guru and everybody was like, go, go, go. Same thing with Threads, although Threads has, held on. I haven't held on to Threads. I've let go of Threads, but it as a platform has stayed fairly. And now there's Blue Sky and there's just so many. And I think it can be so easy to think, oh, the magic is over there. And it's like, no, the magic is where you take the time to deeply build community, get your algorithm work. I hate the word so much.
Me too.
But I recently reset mine and finally I'm seeing books and not clips from White Lotus, which I mean, listen, the algorithm works if nothing else, because all I was talking about and watching at that time, it was when the last season came out of White Lotus, was White Lotus. It knows what you're into. So your Discover page is very indicative of not only what Instagram specifically is showing you, but who Instagram is showing your stuff to. The author space is just tricky because and this is a whole podcast in and of itself. Maybe we'll do another one on this, like just Instagram, how to, maybe you, Jen, and I can all get on a 3-way podcast, right? And like, because that's you guys all day. I'm over here just predominantly experimenting, but I've never been a person who does great with a schedule. And I'm following someone right now who I really enjoy. She's not an author, but she is a social media content creator person. And her thing is you've got to post at exactly to the minute the same time every day so that Instagram learns that you are reliable. And I thought, well, I'm not reliable then. Right. You can rely on the fact that I am not reliable. I don't even know what day it is, Emily, and you want me to remember to post at 9:07? Like
and I'm all about inspired action because I believe in energy behind every single thing. I know it sounds woo-woo, but
no, I do too.
Like it is what it is. But there's also scheduling tools, like Later, where it'll post it for you. And see, I don't like to do scheduling tools. I don't mind. And I've done it for clients. I've done it for people like the back end of the scheduling tool. But instead of posting it, you want to say, send me an alert and I'll post it myself. Because my goodness, you don't want to post like the happiest thing in the world unbeknownst to you 5 minutes before. That's
my greatest fear.
Totally. 100%. And also I tell people you can change your mind. Like Glennon Doyle was all over Instagram for a long time with her podcast and everything. And then all of a sudden she was like, I'm not going to be on social media anymore. It's not good for me. She created with MailChimp, just a newsletter, just a general newsletter. Then I think because Elizabeth Gilbert is such a fan of Substack, she's like, I'm coming out with Substack. And you're like, okay. And then like the next day or 3 days later, it's like, you know what? I didn't really like Substack. So now I'm back to the newsletter. And you're like, all right.
And you know what? That's okay. As long as in my world, as long as you're not jumping just to jump and you're just jumping all. Sometimes you have to make a move and then in order to say, I like this or I don't, or I liked this and now I don't.
And you don't always know what it's like until you get in there. You know, that's the thing too. That's just everything in life, right? You know,
and I loved scheduling. I used Later for a long time. Now I use Tailwind occasionally, only occasionally. But you know, then people will come to the forefront and say, well, if you use a scheduling tool, Instagram deprioritizes it. You know, so then you're like, well, what do I do? And I think what it comes down to is know what your goal is, know who you are, know what you're capable of, and know that it can change.
It does. And it changes all the time. And you'll never master the rules of the algorithms because when you do, it'll change.
Correct.
Or, you know, Instagram used to be just a picture. Now it's reels and stories and this and that. So it's sort
now
of
it's like 4x5 and not 1-to-1. And I think that whether you're an author or another type of creator, or even just a business owner, an entrepreneur, whatever, you get caught up because we want to be able to control it. We don't want to feel like we're wasting time. Nobody wants to feel like they're wasting time. No one wants to feel like they're shouting into the void, which is what so much of this often feels like. Yeah. And I think the knowledge and the reassurance that that's what everyone's doing and you're not behind because you're in that space. You're just one of us. Yeah. There are people who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers with no engagement. There are people who have very small numbers of followers with massive off-platform businesses and engagement. There are people who eschew social media altogether and do just fine. That's fine. It's you know, and so, okay, we're going to do another episode where I'm going to call Jen. We're going to do like a 3 thing. That would be really, I think with some really tactical, practical stuff.
I would love that.
Wouldn't that be fun?
So fun. It'd be so helpful because this is the number one thing. It doesn't matter who I'm working with or if I'm doing a workshop for a publishing house or whatever. The number one thing, people are so overwhelmed. They keep hearing authors are like, I have to have a platform. I have to do this. I have to do that. I want people to buy my books. And it's so overwhelming. And anything that we can do to simplify and take the stress away and I think it's so important for people to celebrate their work, like have fun with it too. Like, you know, there's so much to be proud of and not to get caught up in like all the I have to do this and I have to do it that way. Throw that out the window. Do it your way.
It's such an accomplishment just to release the book.
Yes.
And what's interesting is I find that author's launch day is often the most anticlimactic day because it's just, I don't know what we expect, but that happens and we're like, okay. And then what it feels like is, and I'm just kind of realizing this right now, it feels like you've reached the top of the mountain because you published the book that you've been working on or thinking about or dreaming about for so long. And then in an instant, you're at the bottom of the new mountain, which is now how do I get this to be seen? So sometimes I tell people that the writing of it, if you're looking at it as a long journey, if you look at it as one huge mountain, the writing of it is the first third. The editing of it is the second third. And the promo of it, in fact, you could even divide it into quarters where it's like the writing is the first quarter, the editing is the second quarter, the launching and the promo is the final half.
It's like summits, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So instead, because
I think good way to look at it, Elizabeth. I like that.
Well, I think it feels not good for people when they launch and then they're like, oh God, like, are we there yet? And so if your perspective is switched right from the jump of, first of all, there is no summit really, unless you have a self-defined one. If your self-defined summit is I launched the book, then you're not even listening to this episode because you don't care about any of this, right? If your self-defined summit is I want to be on the New York Times list, then that's your North Star. That's what you're shooting for. And for each book, it can be different as well. So, okay, we're going to do another one. I always ask people, what are you reading now?
It's such a great question. And it's so funny. Okay, so I am one of those people that has a couple of books that I reread 1 or 2 times a year.
What are
a
they?
year. That's a lot, you know?
Okay, but
And
what are they? Because if it's one of the ones that I read, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
oh my gosh. Okay. Well, one of them, it's one of my favorite books in the whole entire world. It's The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. No, really? We're like twinning. It's so good, right?
Every time I read it, I get
Yeah.
something different.
Every time. And it's
Would
such
you
a good
believe,
read.
Emily, that I interviewed someone and I would call her out by name, but I'm not going to try to get hate thrown her way. And because she's lovely, she was lovely and she hated The Alchemist.
Really?
Yes. But I'm okay with it. I told her that. I said, listen, I accept you. I'm judging you a little bit, but I like for every incredible book that someone's like, this is the best thing I've ever, ever, ever read, there will be someone who's like, this sucks. I hated this.
Oh my, no, and that's so true. It's 100%. But I mean, Paulo Coelho, like when you think about The Alchemist, wasn't it like years until people even knew about it?
The story is, and I don't know if it's true because I got to get Paulo on the.
Oh my gosh,
Mr. Coelho.
Yes,
Mr. Coelho. The story goes, he sold one copy to someone in the first year. That person lost their copy and bought another copy. So he sold two copies, but it was to the same person. And then it went out of print and he knocked on every door, like not every house door, but the door of every publishing house in whatever country he was in.
Yeah.
To have them, and they all said no. And then look at it now.
And and also talking about a long tail books, it was, I believe it was last year. It could have been, let's just say in the last 18 months, Will Smith was coming out with a big movie or something. He was being interviewed or somebody said, what was your favorite book growing up or whatever? He said, oh, The Alchemist. And he talks about Santiago and the journey. And the next thing you know, number one, again.
Right. Again.
And
it spent like 100.
Because I follow him on Instagram and he usually posts like just a couple of, he doesn't do anything fancy and it doesn't, but anyways, and he did like a thank you to Will Smith, like on his Instagram. He usually just posts his morning walk, but I was like, this is the magic of books, That's
the point I want to get to, Emily, where I just post my morning walk.
Right.
And people care. Or don't. I don't care. I'll post it.
And that's it.
That's it. Okay. What's the second book you read every year?
I also read, not necessarily every year, but a lot. I revisit The Four Agreements a lot by Don Miguel Ruiz. I just think it's really good. Especially kind of when I feel like the world gets a little chaotic or something, like I just feel like it grounds me. And it's packed with really important principles, I think. And,
Agreed. I love that as well. I need to put that back in the rotation. I'd like to read that one again soon.
Yeah. And I definitely have purchased a couple of books recently that are kind of new ones, but I haven't gotten into them yet. But
okay, what's one that you purchased that you're excited about?
So, well, it's actually a client's one, so I probably won't actually say it yet. But I am looking forward to a couple of like the silly, like I'm always reading God, what's her name? Leanne Moriarty. Like I read all of her books.
Especially with are you watching the nine Perfect Strangers?
I'm waiting. I am so one of those people where I like to be able to binge if I want to. So Hulu drips it, right? So I'm like,
they do.
I have to wait. I think one more week, but I am waiting to dive into that.
Oh my God. Last night, I won't give anything away, but last night I watched, I think we're at episode 4 and I watched it and the ending, I was like, I knew it, but it was still delivered so well that this I knew it piece and then it's like end scene and we've got the credits and I was like, God damn it.
I know. And then see, I can't take that. I'm like, So, but yeah, I mean, I love, and I love all genres. I really do. I tend to rotate between a novel and some sort of personal growth, business, like something that'll kind of like, or bio or something, just something.
Something you could, and I learn a lot from fiction as much as I learn from it's so interesting, but I do. And okay, well, I adore you. And we are going to do another one with Jen DePaula.
I would love
She doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to tell her in about 5 minutes. And thank you so much. I will put all of your links in the notes, and we're going to do this again.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I can't wait. I cannot wait. And